Republicans held slim majorities in the Senate when President Trump was in office, and their 2 votes could have made a real statement. If they were as concerned about abortion as they claimed to be, it seems they could have easily seen where the court was going, and that they have no one to blame but themselves for not realizing it before now. Joining me now is Washington Post columnist Paul Waldman. In December, well before the draft opinion was leaked, he wrote a piece titled, "It's Time to Say It, the Conservatives on the Supreme Court Lied to Us All." Paul, thanks a lot for joining us. Appreciate it. All right, what am I getting wrong here?
Well, I think it's not as important what word we put on it, whether we call it a lie or misleading or propaganda. But the fact of the matter is that the justices, the conservative justices, cooperated with Republicans in Congress and in the media and Republicans everywhere to basically deceive the American people about what their intentions were and what they were going to do. And so there's this kind of charade that everybody in Washington understands as a charade, but I don't know if people outside of it do. So the Republicans get up there and they say, oh, it would be terrible to even imply that this wise judge before us has any opinions whatsoever. And they're not going to be legislators in robes. They just want to apply the law and the Constitution as the framers intended. Yep. And there's all kinds of questions in their hearings that are all about how they're just a blank slate and they have no real relevant opinions. And it's as though they had a kind of intellectual factory reset when they were nominated, that, things like the clearly expressed opinions that Barrett had or that Samuel Alito had about abortion, those have no relevance to what they're going to do on the bench. And so you have these lengthy colloquies back and forth between Republicans on the Judiciary Committee and these judges, all about how they have no real relevant opinions. They're not going to make policy. They're just going to apply the Constitution. It's totally bogus. And everybody who knew anything about it knew that's what was going on.
All right. So let's agree that the political leaders engage in all sorts of gamesmanship when it comes to nominees. But do you not think that Democrats also do the same thing? And it's not on the same issues, degrees, et cetera, but basically do the same thing, because when Democratic nominees have been appointed, they avoid answering questions on issues where they clearly must hold some views, right? I would assume that they all hold views on gun control, et cetera. And when they're asked the question as a nominee to the Supreme Court, they give these kind of vague answers, and the Democratic senators engage in similar gamesmanship, no?
Yeah, I think it depends, and different judges handled it in slightly different ways. But it's one thing to just say, I can't comment on anything that could come before the court. It's another thing to construct this whole kind of this story that you're telling about yourself, about how unsullied you are. There was this moment when Amy Coney Barrett held up this blank piece of paper, and it was to show that she didn't need any notes, but it was really a symbol of what they were trying to communicate about her. Now, the thing is, if you think about what happened when Amy Coney Barrett was nominated, the Republicans were absolutely rapturous about her nomination. And then they went up and said, oh, we have no idea how she's going to rule on anything. We're just so excited because she's an originalist.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's disingenuous. Look, there's no doubt that it's disingenuous for the Republican or Democratic members of the Senate, political leaders, to suggest, oh, I don't know, hey, the person's just the most qualified person out there. Of course, that's incredibly disingenuous. But I guess what I'm just trying to figure out, coming back to Murkowski and Collins for a moment, is they're suggesting that they were misled. And your headline did use the word lie, right? And you say it doesn't really matter. I think it does. I think the word lie connotes something a little different than misled. And they seem to be indicating that at the very least that they were misled. And my position is, if you feel that way now, you didn't do your homework. Do you disagree with me about that?
No, I don't. And I don't know what they're talking about. We don't know what their conversations were with those nominees in private. But at the time, I and lots of other people were screaming in print, like, don't you realize that when Brett Kavanaugh tells you how important this precedent is, that he's not being honest with you, that he, like the other conservative judges, is just as eager to overturn Roe v. Wade as soon as they have the opportunity. I mean, nobody went as far as Clarence Thomas did. I'm sure you remember. Thomas said, in his hearings that he had literally never in his life had a conversation about Roe v. Wade. So blank was his mind and absent of opinions about it. And of course, he then spent 3 decades doing everything he could to get us to this day where it would be overturned. So I don't know why Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski were the only 2 people in Washington who didn't seem to understand what was going on. But maybe that's a question they can answer.
But again, I think that when it comes to the word precedent, right, and again, you heard Kavanaugh and Gorsuch say, and by the way, Amy Coney Barrett, I think, was quite honest in her depiction of her position, as honest as one can be in that position. But both Kavanaugh and Gorsuch both sort of using the word precedent, and it is precedent, right? It is an important precedent. But, that's not the end of the inquiry. It's fine to say, I don't think it's problematic for them to say it was an important precedent, because it was. I don't think that's dishonest.
Yeah, well, I think in some ways, Roe v. Wade is really unique, because if you think about some of the other controversial issues, whether it's something about guns or about the ability of the executive branch to regulate business, there's a lot of shades of gray. But the fact of the matter is, everyone was always concerned with this binary question about Roe. Are you going to uphold it or not? And I think that the conservative justices never had any intention of upholding it. It was just a question of when they got the right case and when they had the right majority, when they got that 6th vote, which allowed them to have 5 votes to really overturn it. I think this is what they had intended all along.
All right. Paul Waldman, as my guest, you get the final word. Thank you for coming on the show. Appreciate the conversation.
My pleasure, Dan.
Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.